Welcome to SciSage, where everything is simple. Today, we're diving into something that impacts literally every part of our lives: sleep. If you've ever felt like you're just running on empty, you can't focus, or you're just not feeling like yourself, the answer probably isn't another cup of coffee. It's better sleep. And here's the good news: getting great sleep is a skill, and it's one you can start learning right now.
Okay, let's just start with this quote from Dr. Ken Berry, who's our guide for today's explainer. I mean, wow, this really hits home, right? This isn't just about feeling a little groggy. One bad night of sleep sets off this whole chain reaction of bad stuff in your body. So what we're going to do is take his 15 research-backed steps and weave them into a super simple, actionable routine that you can start using tonight. Now, what I love about this approach is the filter that every single one of these tips has to pass through. It's not just some random list of trendy hacks. For a tip to make the cut, it has to be backed by actual scientific research, it needs to be rooted in just plain common sense, and, this is the cool part, it has to mimic how our ancestors lived and slept for thousands of years. It's a pretty powerful framework. So let's get right into the plan. We've broken this down into 3 simple parts, and we're actually starting in the morning. Yeah, I know it sounds a little backward, but a great night's sleep truly begins the moment you wake up. All right, first up, and this might honestly be the single most powerful step of them all, get outside for about 30 minutes of morning sun. If you can do it while taking a nice walk, even better. This simple act does something absolutely incredible for your body. It smashes the master reset button on your internal clock, your circadian rhythm. It screams to your brain, hey, daytime is officially started, and that immediately shuts down the sleep hormone melatonin, setting you up for a day full of energy and a fantastic night of sleep later on.
Okay, let's jump ahead to our second phase, the wind down. This whole part of the day really starts in the afternoon. I want you to think of this as a strategic countdown to bedtime, where a few key choices will prepare your body for rest hours before your head even hits the pillow. First on our countdown, at least 6 to 8 hours before bed, it's time to cut off all caffeine. Caffeine has a really long half-life, which means it just hangs out in your system for hours and hours. So even if you're one of those people who says, oh, I can have an espresso and fall right asleep, that caffeine is still in there, and it's absolutely preventing you from getting into the deepest, most restorative stages of sleep. Next up, at the 4-hour mark, no more alcohol. And look, I get it. A glass of wine can make you feel sleepy, right? But here's the trap. It completely wrecks what's called your sleep architecture. That's the healthy cycle of deep sleep and light sleep that you need to feel refreshed. Alcohol might knock you out, but it's like a cheap knockout. It stops you from getting the quality, restorative sleep that actually recharges your brain. And finally, 2 hours before bed, we're cutting off all food and all liquids. This one is huge for 2 main reasons. First, it helps prevent something called silent reflux, where stomach acid can creep up and disturb your sleep without you even realizing it. And second, well, it's the simplest way to avoid waking up at 3 a.m. to go to the bathroom, which just shatters your sleep cycle. So as evening sets in, we have to talk about light. Just think about our ancestors for a second. When the sun went down, their only light was from the moon, the stars, or fire, all of which give off a warm, reddish light. But us, we're blasting our eyes with blue light from our phones, our TVs, our light bulbs. And that blue light is a powerful signal to our brain that says, stay awake, it's still daytime. It literally blocks melatonin production. So the goal here is to go back to our roots and kill that blue light after dusk. Think blue blocker glasses or apps that warm up your screen. Managing your light exposure is the perfect segue into our final phase, the bedtime ritual. These are the last few critical things you do right before you get into bed to really lock in a perfect night's sleep. First, your bedroom environment. The research on this is crystal clear. Your room needs to be cool. We're talking somewhere between 60 and 69 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about 15 to 20 Celsius. Trying to sleep in a hot room is one of the biggest roadblocks to getting that deep, restorative sleep we're after. Now, here's a tip that might sound a little weird, but it's totally backed by science. Taking a hot bath or shower right before bed can actually help you sleep better. See, it's the rapid drop in your core body temperature after you get out that sends a powerful signal to your brain that it's time to wind down. Some people even find a cold shower works for them too. This one is absolutely essential. You want to make your bedroom a pitch black sleep cave. And I mean pitch black. Any little bit of light, even that tiny little blue LED on your phone charger, can mess with your melatonin.
So grab some electrical tape and cover those little lights, turn your alarm clock to face the wall, and try getting ready for bed in a dim room instead of a super brightly lit bathroom. The goal is total, complete darkness. Okay, let's tackle sound. We've got a two-part strategy here. First, you want to block unwanted noises. Earplugs are your best friend here, especially if you have a snoring partner or live in a noisy area. Second, you want to mask any sudden unpredictable noises. You can do that with a white noise machine or even just a simple fan. This creates a consistent, steady soundscape that prevents a random noise from yanking you out of deep sleep. Remember that morning sunlight that sets your body clock? Well, a consistent bedtime is just as important for keeping it on schedule. You really want to aim to get into bed within the same 30-minute window every single night. Yep, even on weekends. If you pair that with a predictable ritual like reading a few pages of a book, you're sending this incredibly powerful signal to your brain that, hey, it's time to power down for the night. So, what happens if you do all of this? You get into your cool, dark, quiet room, and your mind just won't shut up. We've all been there. This last technique is for you. It's called box breathing, and it's an amazing, simple tool to distract that racing mind and just let yourself drift off. It's super simple. You're just going to visualize a box. First, you breathe in slowly through your nose for a count of 4, imagining you're drawing the first side of the box. Then, you just gently hold that breath for 4 seconds as you trace the top of the box in your mind. Now, slowly breathe out through your mouth for 4 seconds, drawing the third side of the box. And finally, hold at the bottom for 4 seconds to complete the square before you start again. Just keep repeating that cycle. By focusing on the counting and the visual, you give your busy mind a simple job to do, which allows your body to finally relax and fall asleep.
All right, so let's say you've really dialed in all 15 of those habits, but you're still looking for that extra 1 or 2%. It's only then, after you've built a solid foundation, that it makes sense to look at supplements. These are an optimization, not a replacement for good habits.
There are 3 in particular that have some pretty solid research behind them. Melatonin can be really helpful, especially for people over 40, because our own natural production starts to decline. GABA is a neurotransmitter that helps calm the brain, so it's great if you have an anxious, busy mind. And then there's magnesium. This one's a biggie. So many of us are deficient in it, and it's crucial for muscle relaxation. It helps prevent those little twitches or leg cramps that can jolt you awake. And really, that brings us to the most important takeaway from all of this. A great night's sleep isn't an accident. It's not luck. It is the direct result of all the small, smart choices that you make from the minute you wake up until the moment you close your eyes. You are in the driver's seat. So as you go through the rest of your day, just think about this plan. You don't have to do everything perfectly tomorrow. Just start with one thing. And that brings us to our final question for you. Which one of these steps are you going to try tonight?